welcome back to the Be More podcast, where we inspire you to be a little bit more of every role within the Salesforce ecosystem and beyond. For today's episode, I have some Salesforce royalty with me, and we are talking Be More MVP Hall of Fame. So, Adam, without further ado, are you okay to introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Sure thing. Thanks, Tom. I'm really happy to be here. So my name is Adam Olshansky. I'm a Salesforce technical architect at Google, living in the United States, and I'm a Salesforce MVP Hall of Famer.
Awesome. Okay. Well, really excited for this conversation and excited to have you here on the podcast as well. So, thinking about a little bit about you and your background, what type of role do you play at Google? And perhaps for those in the audience that are kind of interested in hearing more about the MVP kind of Hall of Fame role in inverted commas, what does that entail too?
Sure. So Google Salesforce architect, basically. So, write a little bit of code, designing systems. We have a Salesforce org, and like many enterprises and larger companies, Salesforce is kind of a small part of our large technical infrastructure. So figuring out what is Salesforce's role in the project, how does it connect to other internal systems, external tools we have, and how does everything kind of play nicely together. And then also involved a little bit of overseeing other kind of developers and business analysts and working together with a bunch of different people to make projects happen.
Nice.
So yeah, definitely, keeps me busy. And as everyone knows, in pretty much every Salesforce role, always more to learn and new problems come up every day. Salesforce MVP Hall of Fame. So for those that aren't aware, many people have heard of Salesforce MVPs. They're recognized by the Salesforce community team for non-Salesforce employees who are kind of doing a bunch of different things in the community, specifically around leadership, generosity, and expertise. And when you get recognized as an MVP, you have to get renewed every year. If you get renewed, I don't think it has to be consecutive, but at some point over your career, if you get renewed for 5 years, then they kind of graduate you to Salesforce MVP Hall of Famer, where you're no longer an active MVP, but you still get to maintain a lot of the perks without the pressure of being renewed. And you also kind of give way for the next round and the next group of people who are kind of up and coming. And so I think it's kind of a great opportunity, one, as a recognition thing, but also kind of permission to, things come and go in your life and you're involved in different things at different points. And it's kind of an opportunity for people who really want to dive into it without the same people having to continuously have that pressure of being involved. So I think it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, that sounds great. And in your role as somebody in the Hall of Fame, how do you interact with other roles?
Yeah, so I think a lot of MVP Hall of Famers, it kind of runs the gamut for sure. Some people are just as active as they were when they were an active MVP. Some people, maybe like me, give themselves a little permission to be a little more scrutinous on what opportunities they're saying yes to and what they want to get involved in.
Yeah.
A lot of us, I think, are doing these things not for any specific reason, but just because we enjoy doing them, enjoy helping people, enjoy talking about Salesforce in our free time, and enjoy presenting. And so definitely continue doing that. So I still try to, present at different conferences, volunteer with groups like Rad Women, attend different events and take advantage of opportunities as they come up, but also maybe a little less pressure to say yes to all the things, and maybe not quite as involved as I used to be. But again, it ebbs and flows, as does life. Sometimes you have more time, sometimes you have less. And so I try to stay involved, maybe not quite as much as I used to be as an active MVP.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, that sounds great, and I certainly see you around the Salesforce community speaking at various events about different things. So that's great to see you still being active, involved, and giving back to the community is awesome. So, thinking about this, and maybe there's perhaps kind of two prongs to this question now. Perhaps a version of when you were an MVP, and then a version of when you were in the Hall of Fame. But how do you fit this role and these responsibilities amongst the day job, right?
Yeah, so I think I would say as an MVP, it was definitely a balance because you
Mm.
want to obviously make sure you're doing your work for your day job, but you also want to do all the MVP things or different things for the community. And sometimes, there were definitely instances where maybe there was something I wasn't that interested in, but I wanted to make sure I had more, credentials to boost my candidacy for the next year.
Yeah.
Whereas now, maybe I'll prioritize the work thing, or I'll prioritize just sitting on the couch and watching Netflix instead. So
Yeah.
it kind of depends on on what it is. But a lot of these things are because I enjoy them. So I still enjoy giving presentations. I still enjoy meeting with people in the community. I still enjoy volunteering, and so I do try to stay involved with a lot of those groups. But I
Hmm.
think for everyone, it kind of depends, and like I said, kind of ebbs and flows. There are months where I'll agree to 3 presentations in a week, and then maybe I'll
Yeah.
take a few months off and do nothing. So a little more
Yeah.
freedom to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great, and I can certainly relate to being guilty of taking on too many things at the same time. I'm still learning that balance myself. So I think there's some great advice there because ultimately you kind of have your day job, you have the stuff that you're doing in the Salesforce community, but you also have a personal and a social life as well, right? And you kind of have to fit those things together, right?
Yeah, definitely a balance, and that I don't
Yeah.
think myself included, all of us maybe strike the right balance every
Mm.
time, but we all try our best.
Yeah, and we're all learning, right? So that's I think a great kind of point there. So thinking about this now and perhaps thinking about somebody in general that kind of wants to be more involved in the Salesforce community, what tips or advice would you give to people kind of really wanting to give back to the community in general?
What is your labor of love, and
Yeah.
less about what can I check, what boxes can I check to boost my credentials, and what do I actually enjoy doing. So some people, and don't, there are definitely examples of what other people are doing, but don't be afraid to kind of invent your own. So like, you started a podcast, that's amazing. you know
Yeah.
there are people like Lauren Balapu, who started Ohana Coffee, right?
Mm.
uh, and then there are a lot of people who do things like run user groups, which I think you also do,
Yeah.
or running so running user group, helping to put on conferences. There are people like Steve Moe who are answering tens of thousands of questions on the Trailblazer community. And there are some people like myself try to give presentations in various places, volunteering with different groups, Rad Women, Salesforce Military, HBCU Force changed their name. I forgot what their new name is, but there are a lot of different groups
Mm.
that allow you to kind of volunteer and give back also. And so it's finding what is it in the community that you enjoy doing and is sustainable and feels less like, oh my God, now I have more work outside of work.
Yeah.
Uh, but rather, this is cool. I get to engage with the community. I get to help people. I get to learn. I get to, do all these things. And so finding what that is for you to interact with. There is a little bit of, making sure that people see what I'm doing also, making sure that you're
Yeah.
connecting with different people and saying yes to certain opportunities. But a lot of it, especially starting out, is finding what it is that you enjoy doing and is sustainable, that maybe you don't mind doing for a long time
Mhm.
without too much forcing yourself to do it.
Yeah. Totally get that. And I think, yeah, it's almost what brings you joy, really.
Exactly.
And what do you like, and what are you potentially looking to learn more about? And coming back to Steve Moe, like for him, he obviously does lots of things, but he's kind of known for the Trailblazer community, and pretty much kind of broke his little card on the profile with the amount of questions that he had answered.
Seriously.
He's answered over 100,000 now, and I'm kind of sat here quite happy on like 25,000. And yeah, so find your passion, kind of work with that, and kind of stick with that. I think is kind of what I hear from you there. So I think that's great advice. So reflecting a little bit on your own journey now to MVP Hall of Fame, amongst that journey, you've probably learned a few different things along the way. And if you had opportunity to kind of change that or do things differently, is there anything that comes to mind that you would perhaps approach in a different way, do you think?
Um, yeah, I think so. Starting out, I think the way I started was actually getting a bunch of certifications and getting a bunch of trailhead badges and posting about
Mm.
it on Twitter. And that was kind of my
Yeah.
introduction to the community. And I found other people getting trailhead badges on Twitter and connected with them and met them at conferences. Um, and so that was a great way to kind of start out for me. At some point, way back in the day, I had all the trailhead badges. I don't think I even have half of them now.
Yeah.
um, I think there were probably definitely times where maybe I kind of forced myself to say yes to certain things that I didn't necessarily enjoy, but I was kind of
Mm.
doing for the sake of doing. Maybe in retrospect, may not have been the best uh, idea. Or one of the things I do also is I try to pair Salesforce presenting with my vacations. So I find
Mm.
a Salesforce conference I want to go to that matches with a vacation spot I want to go to. So, for example, I wanted to go to London. So, okay, let me
Yeah.
time that with London's Calling, which, depending on your life situation, may or may not work. And so, maybe I think I might have in the past prioritized that higher over just taking a vacation to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, pros and cons to all of those things. But for me, things like that are also nice because I go to London to present, but that means I'm going to know people in London that can tell me where to go and where to eat and things like that. So maybe, trying to find some other things that I was interested in. Um, at the beginning, I definitely, as an introvert, maybe don't do as much networking and connecting as I probably should. So going to different events and trying to really force myself to talk to a
Yeah.
couple people at each event, introduce myself, um, might have also been helpful. So I think there are definitely some things that I maybe would have approached a little bit differently in retrospect. But again, like you said, we're all learning along
Yeah.
the way and trying to do the best we can.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's great sound advice. And maybe just a curiosity thing now, but do you often get people that come up to you at events and they talk to you because they know who you are and you kind of maybe never met them or interacted with them before? Does that happen to you?
It does, and I'm actually very happy that it does because I'm not
Mm.
very good about approaching people myself. And so if somebody can approach me and start a conversation, I'm much more
Yeah.
comfortable having a conversation then. But, I do on occasion, and I think some of it is, I remember when I was starting out learning from the people that had all these blogs and advice and certification tips for free and were giving
Mm.
back. And that really helped me get to where I am. And so now I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of my obligation to give back and help people and answer questions and give people certification tips and career tips and Salesforce tips and whatever I can to bring people up as well and continue that Ohana community of all kind of growing and learning
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
So I do definitely, I probably could do a better job of it. But as can we all. But I do definitely try to help people where I can.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. And again, kind of coming back a little bit to the fact that we're learning and also maybe just kind of accepting the fact that not one of us is perfect either, right? So we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. Thinking about this now, maybe as the MVP program in general, and then progressing to the MVP Hall of Fame, what kind of skills, attributes does it take for somebody to achieve that, do you think?
Sure. So one thing I do want to caveat before I answer that,
Mm.
Amy, I don't know if you know Amy Opplinger Singh, but she has a great presentation about imposter syndrome. And a while back, she was looking for people to kind of give quotes and contribute. And I told her, I'm a big sufferer of imposter syndrome. I look at everybody doing all these things around me. And
Mm.
I think you find that amongst a lot of people in the community, amongst MVPs, like, why did they pick me? Like, what am I doing that,
Yeah.
other people aren't? And like, look at how much these people are doing. They're putting on conferences that,
Mm.
10,000 people go to. They're answering 100,000 questions on the community. Like, I gave a
Yeah.
a presentation at a user group, right? Like, and so there is definitely that element to it. So I can tell you what skills have helped me. I don't necessarily have an exact answer to what makes you an MVP or what makes it a good MVP
Yeah.
because I don't necessarily know myself.
No.
But I know things that have helped me definitely are uh, finding ways to give back. So whether
Mm.
that's volunteering, in teaching people, like with Rad Women, helping teach women to learn Apex, or leading a user group, leading a conference, giving presentations. One of the things I tell people is, where you are in your career right now, there's somebody else that would kill to be there. There are skills that you have, there's experience you have that other people want. And so even if you don't necessarily feel that you have something to teach, have something to learn, you do. You have knowledge, experience, and a unique perspective of sharing it. And so I do encourage people to present at their local user group, present at a conference. A lot of people tell me, okay, well, I'm not good at public speaking. And for me, as an introvert, I love public speaking because I know, first of all, everybody is coming to hear what I have to say. So I don't have to go find people. I'm speaking, so I'm not going to be interrupted. I don't have to worry about talking over anybody. And I get to say whatever I want to say for as long as I want to say it. Yeah. And so for me, I think about that a little from that perspective. But if you're not good at public speaking or don't like public speaking or don't want to public speak, again, there are different ways of volunteering, giving back, right? Like answering questions on the Trailblazer community doesn't take any public speaking. It just takes researching and knowing different things about different things or where to find that information. And so, and again, like I mentioned also, if none of the traditional quote unquote things that people are doing appeal to you, start your own. Start a podcast, start a group, start a Slack. Melissa Shepard started, the Architect Ohana for architects in the community. So there are definitely a bunch of different ways to be involved. And I think, there is an element of Salesforce expertise that you also need to have just as kind of one of the pillars of being an MVP. I think it's expertise, generosity, and leadership. So those are probably the three quote unquote skills I would say to focus on. And when you nominate yourself for MVP or nominate others, they also ask, what has this person or what have you been doing that cover generosity, expertise, and leadership? So as you're thinking about getting involved and different ways you want to become an MVP Hall of Famer, think about what you're doing in the community to demonstrate those three pillars. Some of it can be certifications, trailhead, presentations, but again, you can also invent your own way along the way too.
Yeah, and I think that's really solid advice. I love how we kind of touched a little bit on imposter syndrome. Like I have that myself sometimes. It happens to all of us, and I'm glad that we're having more and more of these conversations, and there are more kind of offshoots within the community focusing on things like that, or exam anxiety, I think, is some other talks that I've seen. And we've obviously got the mental health and wellness user group as well. And I think it's great that we're kind of coming together to talk about these things, because the more we talk about it, the more we realize that we actually have these things in common with each other. So I think that's great, and kind of leaning a little bit more into what brings you joy, what interests you ultimately, I think is important too. And definitely as well in support of, if there's not something that perhaps appeals to you within a conventional box, then make your own thing. Do your own thing. Like the community's open to that as well. So I think those are great kind of tidbits there.
Just to piggyback off of that, I think one of the reasons people like us have imposter syndrome is we know how much there is that we don't know, right? The Salesforce community and Salesforce ecosystem is so big now. There will be people who get named MVPs that are doing so many things that I've never heard of or never participated in. There are people, completely rocking it in the nonprofit industry and the partner industry that I just don't interact with that are doing incredible things. And so just because you're not, don't feel the pressure to have to do all the things. You're never going to do all the things or know all the things. No. But finding your niche and where you can help out and where you can make the most impact, I think is something else to consider.
Yeah. And I think that kind of comes back to, I like that word, impact. Making the impact and understanding kind of what type of people you can reach, what type of people you can inspire, and ultimately doing something that you have passion about, because then that will come across in what you're doing and how you're doing it. So yeah, I think that's really great advice there. So thinking about this now, kind of a little bit of reflection really, but is there kind of a common misconception or a myth or some kind of thing that people assume, okay, just because you're in the MVP Hall of Fame, you meet this, I don't know, definition or do this thing. Like, is there something that you'd like to kind of clarify or kind of demyth for the community about what it takes to be in the MVP Hall of Fame?
Sure. I think I touched on a little bit of this before. A lot of us don't know why we were named MVPs to begin with. And so I think maybe there's this assumption that we're doing all the things or know all the things, and that's just blatantly not true. I remember I was in an interview once, and I got the Service Cloud consultant certifications in like 2015 when Service Cloud was a lot smaller than it is right now.
Yeah.
And so somebody's interviewing me and is like, "Oh, you have the Service Cloud certification. You'll definitely know this." And they asked me some very obscure question about like omni-channel or something like that, and like had just come out that I don't work with on a regular basis. And so, especially as the platform has changed and the ecosystem has grown, right? It's not just Salesforce anymore. It's Salesforce and Slack and MuleSoft and there's all the industries. And so we definitely don't know all the things. We're definitely not doing all the things. A lot of us don't know why we're here. A lot of us have imposter syndrome. And at the end of the day, we're all people, like we talked about, balancing our work life with our community life, with our personal life, and we're not always striking the right balance, and we're all also learning and also in awe of some of the other MVPs. I definitely, even as an MVP, will go, "Oh my God, it's Steve Moe." Right?
Yeah.
And so I think there are definitely things like that that maybe don't come across when you see someone have the MVP title. But at the end of the day, we're all part of the community. And I hope at least the grand majority of us are open to helping others and inviting others in, even if we're not great at making the initial approach.
Yeah. Well, we all have strengths, weaknesses, and I think there are some real rock stars and amazing people in the ecosystem. And I think there are some people that are helping to bridge the gap or divide that there once was between different Salesforce products like Slack, MuleSoft, Tableau, and obviously the list could go on. Like, for example, Melissa Shepherd and all of the work that she's doing in the MuleSoft arena. I spoke to her a couple of episodes ago now about what it takes to be a MuleSoft ambassador. So there are so many different ways to kind of get involved and bring yourself joy and bring others joy. And at the same time, perhaps like behind the cloak a little bit, we are all human. We have emotions. We have feelings. We perhaps all suffer with imposter syndrome, and there's perhaps kind of strengths and weaknesses that different people have. And I think it's useful to just remember that, and also kind of perhaps give yourself slack for that, right? Because we are all different, So I think that's really great sentiment. So unfortunately, we are kind of bringing today's episode to a close a little bit. But before we do go, what's a way for people to connect with you? And do you have any particular pieces of content that you've helped to share with the community, or any content that's kind of really helped you on your journey that you want to kind of shout out for our audience?
Sure, yeah. So definitely people can connect with me on Twitter, or whatever Twitter's called these days, at Adam17AMO. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn also. I try to post more Salesforce community things on LinkedIn, and maybe more silly things on Twitter. So those are definitely good places to connect. I have a blog that I don't update that regularly, adamtoarchitect.com, about my journey to become an architect. And then another thing, a shameless plug while I have the opportunity.
Yeah.
So first off, I guess resources that have helped me. My coworker David Liu has a great blog, sfdc99.com, for helping to get certified. And then I'm really passionate about teaching people how to code on Salesforce, teaching people Apex. And so I have a bunch of Pluralsight courses to help specifically studying for the Platform Developer 1 trial. I'm not a big fan of paying for content. And so I do have a 10-day free trial code, which you can access at bit.ly/AO free trial. And that will at least get you 10 days of free access to that content.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's great. And hopefully we can inspire some people to be developers at the same time. So that's awesome. So thanks again for your time today, and hopefully we'll inspire some more people to appreciate and obviously look up to the MVP Hall of Famers, and kind of everything that they've done for the community, and kind of be thankful for that. So that's great, and thanks again for your time.
All right, thank you so much for having me, Tom.
Thanks for tuning in to Be More with Tom Bassett. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave any feedback in the comments.